In this episode of Strength Coach Tutorials, we're going to look at displaying testing results using a scroll bar. What the scroll bar allows us to do is scroll through a set of values and have a chart that automatically updates to display the values that we're scrolling through. This is super useful when you want to display your testing results or just take a peek at old results. So let's get to it. Okay, let's get to it. So as you can see, the starting page here looks a lot like the last video, Strength Coach Tutorials number 26, where we learned how to make a dynamic chart based on a table. So you can see if I change the values here, the chart's automatically going to update. So we're going to take that one step further to pull data out of a separate chart and then update our graph in the middle based on the data that we pull out. The first thing you're going to need to do in order to complete this tutorial is, if you haven't already, turn on your developer tab. So the way to do that is to go File, Options down at the bottom. You're going to get a menu that looks kind of like this, and then there's one called Customize Ribbon, and then you'll see down the right side here of Main Tabs, you'll see one called Developer. If that doesn't have a check mark beside it, you're going to need to go ahead and check that off and then hit OK, and you'll be able to access the Developer tab up here. The reason for that is the Developer tab gives you the ability to insert what are called form controls, and we can use buttons, checkboxes, combo boxes, list boxes, all sorts of things. And the one that we're going to use today is actually a scroll bar. So if I click scroll bar there, and I can insert one here in the middle, and you're going to see that it's basically just an up arrow and a down arrow, and we can scroll through it. So we're going to leave that alone for right now because we have to create some data to pull into our chart that's associated, or our table here that's associated with the graph. So just off to the right here, I've created essentially the same headings that we've used for our table on the left. And we're just going to create some athlete data in here. So we're just going to put in the names athlete 1, and we're going to pretend this is let's say maximal bench press data. So we're going to do it in kilograms. So I'm going to use a function called rand between. And what rand between is going to allow us to do is pick a random number between a set of designated values. So I'll hit equal rand between and then brackets, and it's going to ask me for the bottom number, let's say 10 kilograms, and then comma, the top number, let's say 160 kilograms. We can close that off. So if we drag these athletes down, what you'll notice with rand between is every time we make a new calculation in Excel, it's actually going to update those numbers, and that's not something we want. So let's see what that looks like. I'll drag these down, and it will have created up to 27 athletes for us with a random bench press, 98, 39, 148, 101, 18, and you get the idea. I'm going to center these values just to make it look prettier. And if I was to add another value, what you'll see is all of the random numbers will actually change. And that's going to look kind of silly when we go to update our chart here. So I'm just going to make all these values stay in place, and how I'm going to do it is I'm going to copy them, Control C, and then I'm going to paste them back in, and I'm going to put paste values only. So when I do that, it's taken out the rand between, and it's actually given me just the values that created. And that's an easy way to create dummy fitness test data if you want to use it for practicing your Excel skills. So moving on, the next thing I'm going to do is actually turn this into a table. So I'll select all the data, and same as we've done in a lot of other videos, we're going to hit Format as Table, and I'm going to make this one blue. My table has headers, okay. And just to make this easy, I'm going to give this table a name. So when you click on a table, it's going to take you to the Table Tools design, and I'm going to call it Table Worksheet Data. So that way, when I'm referencing this table, I know exactly what it is. And then this table over here that we've created from the last video, I'll select the design. I'm going to call this Table Worksheet Data Pull. So this is going to be the table where we're actually pulling the data into, and I'll hit OK. So we've got all of our data set up. we have our two data tables. We have the one where we're going to be pulling the data into, and the other one where we're going to store all of our data. So the next thing there is to do is just to link the scroll bar to the data pull table and use a formula to pull the data in from the full data table. So the best way I know how to do this is I'm actually just going to give this a number on the side. So we're going to go 1, and then to make a scroller, we're going to have the next value change based on the first value. So we'll just equal cell above plus 1, because we want it to go up by 1. So that'll go to 2, and if I just scroll that one down, you'll notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we were to change the top value to say 10, you'll notice we have 11, 12, 13, 14. And that's going to be really important for our scroll bar. So if I hit 1 there, we'll put everything back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Center that so that it's out of the way. And now we can actually link our scroll bar to those values to make them change every time we scroll the scroll bar. And you'll start to see how this takes shape in a second. So if I right click on my scroll bar and I hit Format Control, the current value is going to be 0. I'm going to make that 1 because our first athlete is athlete 1. We'll make our minimum value 1. Our maximum value is we're probably never going to have more than, let's say, 40 athletes. So we'll make our maximum value 1. Incremental change is going to be 1. And then we need a cell link. So what I do here is I click this little up arrow, and I actually am just going to select the cell link where I put the initial 1. Okay. And I hit enter, and then okay. So what's going to happen here, as I scroll the scroll bar, you can see that these values over here incrementally change every time I click the scroll bar. So those are called dynamic values. So they're going to change based on the scroll bar scrolling. So we'll take the scroll bar back up to the top, and you'll notice they go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now with that, we can use those values to reference data out of our table that's made in blue here. So all we're going to do is we're going to use a function called index. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit equals index, and I'll hit a bracket, and then I'll select my table, and we have worksheet data, and it's going to ask me what row number I want. So when I select the row number on the side here in B4, that's actually the row number that we're going to want to pull the data from. So you'll see I'm going to select B4, and then it's going to ask me what column number I want. And our athlete names are stored in the first column, so I can select 1 there, close the brackets, and what you'll see is as I scroll, the only one that's got a formula in it right now is athlete 3, but you'll see that one change athlete 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up. And you'll also notice that on the graph here, it's changing as well. So all we have to do is put that formula now down the whole table, so we can drag and drop that because of the way we created it. And all of the athlete names are actually going to change. So we can use a similar process for our test values now. So we can go equals index, bracket, table data, so worksheet data. It's going to ask us for the row number, same row number because we want the data associated with that athlete. But now our test data is stored in column 2. So I can put a 2 there, close bracket, and hit enter. And you're going to see that as I scroll, the data is going to change with the athlete. So same thing again, we can drag that down. And now as we scroll, our data is going to change. Now the only thing that's left to do is what you'll notice when we get to the end is we get this ugly ref value. So in order to clean that up, we can use a function called if_error. So we'll go to the first one again, and in front of where it says index, we'll type if_error, I-F-E-R-R-O-R, bracket. So if there's no error, this is the value that it's going to put. But if there is an error, we hit comma, and then I'm going to put 2 double quotation marks to signify that we want it to be blank, and then close that off and hit enter. And that's going to update the formulas all the way down. So you see that those ugly ref values, because those were in error, those have now disappeared to be blank. And I'm going to do the same thing in our test data here. So I'm going to hit equals if error, and then bracket, comma, 2 double quotations, close that off, and hit OK. So what we've effectively created here is a scrollable chart, or a scrollable table, sorry, that's going to allow us to pull any fitness data we want out of another chart and have an automatic, or out of another table, and have an automatically updating graph. So I hope this trick helps you out. Try using it in your own spreadsheets. There's lots of different ways you could apply this trick. And if any of these tutorials have helped you out, please remember to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, you can find me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at DSMStrength. And I also have another Instagram account that I'm going to be updating soon, where I'm going to keep it primarily for strength coach tutorials, and that is at Instagram Strength Coach Tutorials. So you can find me on any of those social networks. Please feel free to reach out and ask me any questions about some of the sheets that you're working on. Thank you very much.